So today I have two new COVID-19 cases to report. One is a new confirmed case that is in quarantine in Auckland associated with international travel, and one is a probable case that is associated with an existing case. That is a close contact of an existing case. In addition to this, we have also reclassified a previous probable case as confirmed. This is an historic one. It actually dates from earlier in April, and it's just been updated in our EpiServe database as confirmed. So therefore, whilst the net increase today was 2 cases, our new total confirmed cases is 1,126, and for probable cases it is 348, which is the same as yesterday. Our total combined confirmed and probable cases is therefore 1,474. We report the confirmed case number to WHO and will continue to do so. That is the 1,126. Pleased to say no additional deaths to report today, and we have 6 people in hospital, none of whom are in intensive care. Yesterday, 2,637 tests were completed, and our combined total to date is 128,073 tests. Of our cases, 1,229 are reported as recovered. That's an increase of 15 on yesterday and now comprises 83% of all cases. There remain 16 significant clusters, no change from yesterday. A couple of words from me about Alert Level 3, as the Prime Minister said, now 2 days old. It's important that we keep reinforcing the key messages around expectations and how we need to all behave during Alert Level 3. It's crucial we stay vigilant and in particular maintain the guidelines around physical distancing, keeping within bubbles, good hand hygiene and not going out if unwell. And as commercial activity resumes, this applies to businesses and retailers who are now interacting in a contactless way with providers. And yesterday, like me, you will have seen some aspects of Level 3 were a little bit like the first day back after the summer holidays. And also we were all getting used to a new way of doing things. And I think for the most part, businesses got that right. However, we did see some pictures of quite large groups of people congregating outside 1 or 2 places. I'm sure those businesses involved will be working on their processes today to ensure that any customers waiting to pick up goods or services can maintain physical distancing. That will be imperative in terms of our ability to provide confidence to the government that we are ready to move down alert levels in due course. As I said yesterday, we have a new Section 70 notice that does include provisions to close non-compliant premises. However, I think yesterday would be a good example of everybody settling into a new regime, and for the most part that worked well, but just ironing out some small matters that do need to be ironed out quickly. So overall, the message is the same: stay home, save lives, and that's our number 1 rule for Alert Level 3. If you need medical attention, ring Healthline, ring your GP, or if it's an emergency, dial 111. And if you have any respiratory symptoms, please do contact Healthline or your GP and talk about getting a COVID-19 test. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you, Dr. Bloomfield. I want to start by reminding people in the same way that Dr. Bloomfield has that we are not out of the woods yet. While our case numbers remain low, we will still have cases, and we have seen with our large clusters in New Zealand that it only takes one person to potentially affect many. With that in mind, we continue to take a firm stance with the enforcement of rules at Level 3. This is our waiting room, and so we need to make sure that we're vigilant in the way that we treat it. The rules are ultimately in place for a reason, and that reason is to keep us safe, but to also move us as quickly as we can into other alert levels. Police recorded 104 breaches in the first 18 hours of Alert Level 3. The vast majority of these resulted in warnings, but 21 people have been prosecuted and 71 warnings issued. In addition, 742 complaints of businesses not complying with Level 3 rules were made. Most related, though, interestingly, to a lack of social distancing and business operating practices. MB, MPI and other agencies will be following up on a further proportion of these complaints. Agencies have been tasked in particular cases where they've triaged. 61 cases in particular are being followed up on. So while our preference is to educate and engage with businesses to ensure they're operating within the rules, we will not hesitate to take firmer measures if required. I asked a couple of questions this morning, particularly of some of the images I've seen of areas, and there were a couple of persistent photos that lingered around from some places in particular, and I've been told that MB and Health have actively reached out to some of those businesses to make sure that they are working with them on the ground to improve their practices to stop congregation at their place of business. Also update you today on early figures we have to hand on school and ECE attendance on the first day back today. Data from 10:30am this morning shows that 7,713 children attending an early learning service and 11,846 attending a school. This represents 4% attendance at ECE and 1% attendance in schools. Keeping in mind, though, for those numbers, we've had reporting from 37% of early learning services and 55% of schools. So these numbers will be updated. But early indications are that New Zealanders continue to take our lockdown at level 3 very seriously, that there remains an ongoing commitment to cementing what we've done and therefore learning and working from home if that's possible. I do want to thank everyone who is doing that, though. I know distance learning and having children at home while you're working can be very hard, but these early numbers demonstrate the ongoing commitment people are showing and New Zealand's ongoing commitment to not seeing a second wave of infection in New Zealand. Finally, I want to talk about New Zealand's small businesses, many of whom will now be back at work, but some who will not. We have already put in place the wage subsidy scheme to help with what is usually a firm's largest costs, wages, and today I can share news of further work that we are doing to help with commercial rents. As many of you will know, we've already agreed to push out deadlines on lease terminations when someone moves into arrears. But it is clear that this alone would not be enough for many businesses. We need to provide more reassurance as much as we're able to within the law. Although we cannot currently impose a commercial rent reduction, you've heard me speak to that a few times here, we have asked commercial tenants and landlords to work together to reach a fair agreement. However, some parties on both sides of the contract appear unwilling to renegotiate payment terms with officials, advising that some landlords are demanding full rent from tenants who have been unable to trade for several weeks and cannot afford it, while some well-resourced tenants have written to landlords declaring that they refuse to pay any rent for several months. Minister Little discussed options with other ministers at Cabinet Committee this morning. I can confirm that we are actively working on measures under which parties to a commercial lease would be expected to consider rent concessions in whole or in part for a period where the response to Covid-19 has had a material impact on business. We've heard the call for extra support from small business over and above that already provided through the wage subsidy and tax measures, and we are working actively to resolve that. So on principle, we've supported the work Minister Little is doing. We expect papers to come shortly, and as soon as those final decisions and work has been completed by the Ministry of Justice, we'll be sharing it. I do want to acknowledge that something similar has been worked up in Australia. That code of conduct, as I understand, still hasn't been legislated. That needs to happen at a state level. So we're working actively on looking at some of the similarities of what they've done here and what will be workable under our Property Act in New Zealand. Finally, it was my privilege during Alert Level 4 lockdown to thank all of our essential workers and others who have done an amazing job. And now, at Alert Level 3, I'm receiving many examples of businesses using good old Kiwi ingenuity to open up at Level 3 with contactless transactions. Today, I want to highlight a couple of examples from what I know will be the missed food and beverage sector. Gizzy Local, an events website, has collated in one place nearly 30 food businesses that Gisborne locals can now access, noting how to order and how to collect. And some of you will have seen coverage of the Auckland coffee shop extending a plank of wood from which to serve up their flat whites at an appropriate distance. I do want to say good on to everyone who is working so hard to innovate, keep their customers safe, but get also their staff back to work. It's incredible to see. I know it makes people feel very proud given the difficult circumstances people are operating under.